Hi everybody, I am Joshua from Future-Morphs and I am doing this video in English because I think it's important for basically everybody all over Europe. Maybe you read it already, especially in the Hum groups on Facebook. They are, at least at the Hum reptile show, they are thinking about rules for certain morphs. And that's not per se a bad thing, but well, I want to make a video about it because I read sort of the article that they linked and it's not a fixed rule yet, especially not for the June show. They say they will be thinking about rules in the September show. So we have some time, sort of, but I wanted to make a video because some of the things in the article are just really strange to me. So basically what they say is they will only maybe ban certain morphs, and not just about corn snakes, about all types of reptiles basically, that are scientifically proven that they have a bad influence on the animal itself. And if you say it like that, then you think, well, but Joshua, that's a good thing. Yes, I agree, that's a good thing. Let's also put first, I am not a scientist, so I did not do any scientific research. And yes, I am a corn snake breeder, as you can see. So maybe us from corn snake breeder land support the breeders from corn snake land. But I just want to make this video and sort of get into it. I am curious if anybody, either in Germany, but also in other cities like the Netherlands, they're thinking about making these rules. And I'm curious if they ever talked about breeders, for instance, or if they just look at the scientific data, which not, I do scientific because sometimes it's not super scientific if you ask me, but that's a different story. So I want to make the video, like I said, I will do it in English because also on Facebook, basically the Hum reptile show said okay, who is in favor of rules for animals that are, well, in bad shape or whatever. And also at least the reptile shows in the Houten in the Netherlands and also Verona in Italy also said, yeah, we also want to make our shows better. And I understand that, of course, because it's also sort of political pressure, not just from the different shows, because let's admit, Houten, Hum and Verona are the three biggest reptile shows in Europe, I think. And they all want to be basically the best, I guess. If I would at least start a reptile show, I also want to be the best. But so it's getting a little dangerous in my opinion, because maybe if Hum would just say, okay, these are the rules, that other countries would just say, okay, we will make the same rules. I also contacted VHM events, that's the Houten, the organization from the Houten reptile show, and I emailed them and they said, well, yeah, we don't have any rules yet, we are still looking into it, but maybe we are sort of forced to do something from politic wise, basically. Probably everywhere, but in the Netherlands you have some political parties that are really well into saving all the animals, and saving is a in quotes maybe again, but also I know, for instance, because you read about it quite often, that the Hum show in Germany is sort of, well, under scrutiny or contacted or checked by PETA, that's also an animal rights organization. So I understand there is some sort of a politic aspect of making good rules, and that's not per se a bad thing, but I don't like banning things that should not be banned, in my opinion. So I will just talk about corn snakes mostly, but there are many other snakes and lizards and amphibians that are also on the list. But I don't have those, so I cannot speak too much about those. Of course, I have knowledge about them, but it's not my my cup of tea, basically. So I will just do the corn snakes, and I will just list the ones that they talked about in the article, and tell you what I think, why that morph is good or bad. I will also link the article in the description, by the way. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, the link is down there. So just click it and you can read everything. And if you cannot read German, because it is in German, just use Google Translate. My German is also definitely not the best, but with Google Translate, you can just do paragraph by paragraph, and it's really easy to understand that way. It's not written in a difficult way. So let's start with the first morph. One of the morphs on the list, not just for corn snakes, but basically they say for all animals, is the albino or amelanistic. So this is just an amelanistic corn snake. The reason amelanistic would not be good in certain or all animals is, well, two reasons they say. One is that they don't heat up as quick as animals with black pigment, well, that makes sense, of course, because we just know it also by wearing dark clothing, but also certain snakes in the wild develop really dark colors in cold climates, so that makes sense. And the other thing is they cannot handle UVB lighting really well, because they are more prone to burn. Also makes sense because, well, in humans, for instance, as well, and in dogs and whatever, some animals are just not good at, well, protecting themselves against UVB light. So, do I agree with both those sort of articles or statements? Yes, I do. But here's where my my radar sort of starts going off. Does it matter if this snake has to heat up for 20 minutes or 25 minutes in a terrarium or in a tub? I don't think it matters. So yes, they might heat up a little slower, but if you just make sure they have the right temperature all the time, they can just choose between a warmer spot and a colder spot. So that's definitely not a problem in captivity. The other thing is UVB light. So yes, I also agree with that. So I can imagine that an albino green iguana or an albino bearded dragon or whatever, they can have issues if you have a nice UV light in the terrarium. But we know that snakes don't need UVB lighting to be healthy and thrive, because UVB light, especially in tortoises and turtles and lizards, they need UVB light to basically produce vitamin D3, and then they can use that vitamin D3 to take calcium out of their diet and into their body. But snakes eat whole prey, at least corn snakes eat whole prey, so they will get enough calcium and enough D3 via their diet anyway. So yes, albinism or amelanistic animals, they do have issues with UVB light, but if you don't have UVB light with your corn snake anyway, because they don't need it, then they don't really miss it, of course. So to me, amelanistic animals are definitely not a bad thing in corn snakes. Also, the first one ever found in the wild was in the 1950s or whatever, and they were bred since the 1960s. So we are talking 60 or 70 years of this color mutation in captivity. So if they would really do bad, you could assume that there weren't so many in the world right now. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the amelanistic corn snake. The second that is actually on the list for just corn snakes is the sun-kissed gene. Well, in this case, this is a sun-kissed caramel tessera, so it's a combination. And as you can see, it moves really well and really normal. In the article, it says something, it is a sort of a quote, but it's from German to English, so don't quote me directly. But they say something like, yeah, in sun-kissed, the Stargazer gene is often found. That's, let's say, not true. Does Stargazer exist? Yes, I totally agree, and you don't want Stargazer in your collection or in your snakes, because they really, well, they make they stargaze, so they look up the stars, and yeah, it's a neurological thing, and you don't want that in your collection or in your snake. So I totally agree with that. The article also said it was found since or described in 1991, so that is 30 years almost now. The reason that you don't see it often anymore, especially not as sun-kissed, is because it's not linked to sun-kissed at all. It originally came from OKT sun-kissed lines, but it is already proven since many, many years that it's a simple recessive gene. So just as the gene sun-kissed itself, or amelanistic or lavender, also Stargazer is a simple recessive gene. So you can actually breed for it if you want to, but also if you don't want to, you don't have to breed for it, of course. So what people did, like since the last 10 or maybe 15 years, is do test breedings for Stargazer. So they would just use a Stargazer animal to a possible het or whatever. And so that way you can prove out if an animal is het Stargazer or not heterozygous Stargazer. So you can have a sun-kissed like this. That's perfectly normal because it comes from a tested line. So yes, Stargazer should be banned, but no, it has nothing to do with sun-kissed. So if the reptile show would say, yes, sun-kissed is banned because Stargazer comes from it or is in it or whatever, that's just BS, because then, well, I don't want to wake up sleeping dogs, we say in the Netherlands, but in theory, every snake, every corn snake can be a carrier of the Stargazer gene. Of course, it's really unlikely if it doesn't come from an OKT or a sun-kissed line, but you can have it in every morph. So Does it have anything to do with sunkissed? No. So should sunkissed be banned? No. Quite easy if you ask me. Next on the list for corn snakes is Scalars. Well, and as you can see, and the name says it, it's missing scales. At least they did some proper research, I guess, because they do say that they have belly scales, which makes them able to crawl around. So that's definitely true. And basically what they say is Scalars, I'm sorry, should be banned because of a couple of things. First of all, they have less protection against wounds, so they have more issues with like getting cut and stuff like that. Which is true, of course. They are missing some armor, I guess, on them, which a normal scaled snake does have. But again, in captivity, especially in tubs, but also in a terrarium, if you don't have any sharp stones or sharp rocks or sharp wood or whatever, which I don't recommend for a scaled snake anyway. So why the hell would a scalar snake have issues just in captivity? Because yeah, you should make it either a terrarium or a tub, a good house for your snake and not a dangerous place, of course. So that's item number one. Item number two, why Scalars would be bad, is because of water management. They supposed to lose water quicker, which I also can definitely understand that it could be true. So I'm not disagreeing with that. But yeah, again, we are talking about captivity. So if you have a water bowl in your terrarium all the time with fresh water, and if you spray them if the humidity is too low, so you also have higher humidity, you can add a box with wet moss, so they have always a humid height. You can spray water to increase the humidity, like I said, but also they can drink drops from that. So there are many things you can do to make sure that your snake can drink enough, so he won't dehydrate, of course. So that's also not really yeah, something in captivity that has to be an issue. And the third item on the list, while Scalars should be bad, I have to look up. Wait. And I'm back. I forgot one thing. Also, UV radiation would be less good for them. But I talked about it with the amelanistic. So I can definitely understand if you don't have scales that UVB light can be a little too strong or whatever. But they don't need UVB light anyway. So I have Scalars since, I think, 2011 or something in my collection. And I've been breeding them for almost 10 years, I guess. And they do everything. They hatch, they shed, they eat, they poop, they mate, they lay eggs, they do everything. So also in the article, it's also about scaleless or partially scaled bearded dragons, for instance. And they say, yeah, sometimes animals without scales, they need like lotion and stuff for the scales to come off. I cannot talk about bearded dragons because that's not my thing. But in scalar snake, you don't need to do any of that. So if you just make sure the humidity is high enough, then they will definitely just shed normally and you won't have any issues with them. Also, people might not know it, but also they have scales covering their eyes, so their eyes are protected. They also, if they shed, the eye caps just come off. And the skin itself, it's also it is scaleless, but they shed just from head to tail, just like any other snake. So it's not that the scales or that the skin is missing or whatever. It's really just the scales. So they still have a layer of keratin on them, and that also sheds. So yeah, also to me, not a real reason to ban scaleless snakes. The last morph I want to talk about is not per se on the list yet. So again, maybe I'm awaking sleeping dogs. But they are talking about bug-eyes in some ball python morphs. And bug-eye is also known in some corn snakes. Well, not in some, basically only in palmetto. So bug-eyes means that the eyes are a little bigger. So you can see it in this one, it has a little bigger eyes. So basically, I already want to include bug-eyes in this video, not because they talked about it in corn snakes, but it is just a thing. I'm also not an ostrich that will put my hand in the sand, and I know if there are issues, of course, because this is basically what I do. I breed snakes for a living, and I only breed corn snakes, basically. So, yeah, I know which issues that they can have. So is bug-eyes a bad thing? Yes. Do you want it? No, you don't want it. But just in case somebody would decide like, oh, bug-eyes comes from palmettos, you can never offer palmettos again, for instance. I just want to say already now, basically, like, yeah, that's also, well, BS, because you also have a lot of palmettos with good eyes. Usually it are the males. If they have bad eyes, it are the males. Females usually do have good eyes. And on the website from the guy who basically is the founder of the palmetto, he said that about 1 in 2, like 22% or 24%. So basically somewhere between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 palmettos has some form of bug eyes. So if they would say, okay, you cannot offer bug-eyed animals on the show, I totally agree with that. But don't say like, yeah, let's not offer, or yeah, let's ban all palmettos. Because if you have a good palmetto with good eyes, there's no reason not to keep it or breed it, I guess. So those were the morphs. Basically, in conclusion, is I'm not against any rules. Definitely not. The rules are a good thing sometimes. But rules have to make sense, not just to me as a breeder, but also to hobbyists, just keepers or whatever. And they should not be based on basically either like woke political parties or social justice warriors that just want to say, oh, we need to do the best for all the animals. And of course, we need to do the best for the animals. But yeah, the things they are describing in the article are just not totally true. So some of the things in the article are definitely true. I'm not against it. And if they would say like, yeah, you should not offer a palmetto with really big eyes. Yes, of course, I agree. But I want to make this video hopefully to basically say to you guys, like, if you read something like this, at least think about it and not just go with the flow. Don't just say like, well, don't be basically a keyboard warrior and type on Facebook, oh, this is the best rules ever. Just because you might have one corn snake or not even snakes or not even reptiles in general or something. Of course, you can have an opinion, that's not a problem. But don't just agree on something if you don't totally know everything about it, I guess. So don't just go with the flow, but do some own research. Also, if you see this and you are not a corn snake guy, but you are, I don't know, basically a reptile keeper or an amphibian keeper, but especially some of the animals that are in the article. So you could think about ball pythons, carpet pythons, bearded dragons, leopard geckos. If you are in that world, basically, at least let people know about, well, that they want to make certain rules. And also sort of inform people that not everything is bad. Some people just think, oh, a morph is bad per se because it's not like in nature. Which is also not true because a lot of corn snake morphs came from nature originally. So, but also keep in mind that nature is not the same as captivity. So yes, you have the snakes is still the same. It's not a domesticated animal, although some people might even disagree on that. But don't just strictly compare the wild to captivity. I always say to those people, if you want to do that, that's fine. But then if you have a corn snake at home, then you should also add a bunch of ticks to the terrarium and maybe adult rats and a bird of prey and a badger. And because that are things that a snake also comes across in nature, but you just don't want that in captivity. Well, same as some of the bad morphs, you don't want them, but like the bug eyes, but for instance, amelanistic and scalars and stuff, you can easily manage in captivity. Well, that was my rant. I'm not upset anymore. I got it all out. Thanks for watching this video. If you want, just share it with other people. It's never a bad thing, well, to inform people about stuff like this. And if you don't agree with me, or if you do agree with me, I don't mind. You can always leave a comment. I don't mind. Just don't be one of those keyboard warriors that just say, oh, Joshua, you suck because you keep morphs, basically. I don't like those people in general. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video, which probably will be in Dutch again because most of my videos are in Dutch. Also follow me on Facebook because there, if I go live on Facebook, I will always do it in English. So if you only speak English, follow me on Facebook. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Bye.